Hello everyone. Welcome again to another Friday Learning with BuzzMyVideos. We have a new guest today, Francesca Mastrogiacomi. Welcome to our Friday Learning Friday with BuzzMyVideos.
Thank you, Paola.
We are very happy to have you here. We've known each other for ages. I'm not going to say how many years, but quite a lot. Francesca is a super expert. Did I say super? About digital, anything from the very beginning. She's been in Google like from 2003? Five. I mean, long time ago when Google was not a thing at the time. I joined in 2006 and still people were looking at me like, why are you working for Google? And I was like, come on, it's Google. It's crazy. Like, it's the future. We probably were right at the time. She's been very much in the digital space when everything was happening and still is driving like as a change agent in everything that is education, learning, anything that basically really transforms the organizations to better performing organizations and make it, especially she does that with a huge smile, which I think it's you're going to see during this interview, which is going to come out very easily. So welcome to this event with us, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Paola. It's an honor. I'm happy to be here. And of course, you're smarter than I am because you joined later Google and you left earlier than I did. So that proves you were quicker.
Well.
You know, hired the smart people, and that was, again, true in your case.
That was a good bunch, though. It was a very good bunch of people. We had a lot of fun, and we did a lot of things that we probably were very happy to do at the time. There's a lot of stories. We're not going to share all of them now, but
not at all.
There's a lot of stories. So I explained a bit about you, but can you just give us a bit of your background? I think it's going to help more to understand where, like, your professional life, but especially why you're here, and in terms of we're going to look at the opportunities that you see in terms of what's happening now. And I think that your point of view is going to be very valuable, especially because of your experience and your approach moving forward. Who are you? Tell us.
Oh, well, that's a very big question. I like to think of my life as, circling around the same circles. And now I'm back in Marche. So I Brexited and I left London in 3 years ago, and I came back to Italy. Exactly, not Milan, not Rome, exactly to where I was born. And I started in 2000. We had an e-commerce startup. So that's when digital not entered my life, because before I was always dealing with e-learning, and it was very early days in e-learning as well. So we set up this e-commerce startup. I was taking pictures of salami and truffle sauce, and then I was doing digital marketing with like $100 of budget. We tried to sell all that stuff to United States. And that's why Google, basically, they were looking for people who were doing digital marketing very early day. And I was doing my PhD, and at the same time I was studying the semantic web, the keywords. So, when Google parsed my CV, they found keywords, e-commerce, marketing, and there I was hired, and I spent like 12 years at Google. And there I changed 4 jobs, so I experienced sales, products, and then strategy and operation. And I went back to the beginning. I moved to London to do the digital academies. So I was helping designing experiences for Googlers and external client and agencies to transform their way of approaching digital. So that was very natural for me when I Brexited, left Google, taking the big decision. I came back to Italy, and now I work with educational institutions like Lewis Business School. I help them basically in the content strategy as much as a digital advisor in terms of platforms. And what I do now, I generally help people transitioning. It's like coming back, I saw things you didn't see, and then I just help people, because it's never a technological problem. It's always people need to see the change and to change. And COVID forced all ourselves to go into fully digital education. Now we're having a lot of this kind of interviews. So yeah, how do you do that effectively? How do you keep people happy and with a smile while doing that? So this is like the loop. I went back to education because I think that's where everything starts. It starts with human beings, and then digital is like platform and enablers, and it's just a way of solving problems.
Well, that's very interesting. Thank you for sharing your experience. I think that by listening to you, learning is the key word of everything you were talking about. And so, education seems like really kind of what is important, no matter what. Like, could be serving a purpose and solving problems, but it's just really changing mindsets and giving better opportunities to actually solve more problems. So I think that's a well, probably it's more of a mindset than anything else. Then you build the skills around it, and I think it's a very good approach to solving problems. And I think the businesses usually and institutions right now, especially, like they need it more and more. Like while they're going through the journey of managing the unexpected, because now it's the unexpected is the norm, unfortunately, and you can just complain about it or you do something with it and you change the mindset to actually reach some goals, new goals, or set new goals as well. So that's very, very interesting. And based on your experience, because so you came back to education, so you are also a professor at Louisville School, among other things. What's your point of view on how education is changing, like in the last year? Because I saw so many people, like for example on LinkedIn, adding the certification of Coursera or like whatever they're doing. Education is like becoming like suddenly even more important than it was before. Like everywhere, people were proud that they were doing courses, and the demand exploded. So what's going on in education?
Well, for sure, we had more time and you were at home stuck. So there has been a huge kind of peak in terms of taking the advantage and the time to invest in yourself. So these are always good opportunities to rethink and think of ourselves as an asset. And, and that's in the mindset. In moment of crisis, you can think, what do I need? And of course, Coursera, Udemy, Udacity, EdTech, it all started again with edX, like a startup. If you think in education, it's like a continuum. You want a super uber personalized experience. If you think in the 18th century, like Rousseau, you had like your own private tutor, and that was a sign of being rich and investing in few people that were educated. Then you have all of a sudden the Oxford model, a small group of very rich people again in this model of mentorship, and then having someone helping you. And then you have at the other spectrum, you want moocs, you want the MIT kind of experience, you want all that content. And that's largely scalable, because you can put, like you said, a course on Coursera, and then everyone will follow and put that stamp on their CV because they had that kind of Harvard-like experience. So what's going on in education? COVID forced everyone to go online, and I mean, I've been in teaching and learning right from the beginning. I had a PhD in adult education, and I was totally into e-learning. So I was driving like research, saying, okay, everything is, you could use semantic web to super personalize with artificial intelligence, like the path, so that you could give, like you're giving ads to people at the right moment, you could give a learning bites when you need them, exactly from your experience. But at the time that wasn't possible. Now it is possible. There's artificial intelligence, there are platforms, but if you think of a learning management platform, it's very old technology. If you think that Google used Moodle like until 2014, because why? It was free and no one really invested in that kind of technology. Now with COVID, we realized it's not a content issue, it's a social platform that you need to provide to people to communicate, but it's also how do you interact? And then that is the key, how you organize the experience. Because when we talk about experiential learning, it's not just about taking a group of people and you go to the mountain and you do rafting. Oh, what do we learn? now it is about digital. It is about bringing the people, sharing with them experience, and make them like the main driver for their own learning. So now it's really interesting time to be in the education space, because companies need to educate the people they work with, and they need to find a new paradigm to do that. And schools, of course, need to provide talents that have this ability to learn, and that's mindset. And it all happens according to this spectrum. There are, you know, digital born players, and even in the MBA, there are players that we're looking at. And you know, Javier Zapatero in Spain, he left Google and he set up ISDE. And now what do? They went from digital to getting fully certificate, because if you pay a lot of money for education, then you want a certificate for it. So they take the spectrum from the other side, but then they go to the side of all institutions that need a certificate to prove their value. Same thing for what was the country manager in France. They set up another e-learning startup, because there's this need to have scalable learning objects that you put in front of people, but at the same time, the true let's say luxury experiences. Now, if you think of MIT, they launched the moocs, but basically they now have super high touch courses in which they accept 5 people, because you need mentoring, you need people that makes you do that extra leap. Managers, if you're lucky to have a great managers in your corporate life, they help you doing those bounces as a human being, so that you develop leadership. So it is interesting, but if you are in the business from such a long time as I am, you can see the trends and you can see all the dots that are starting connecting. Sorry, you need to interrupt me, because I
that's
could
okay. No, that's fascinating. That's fascinating. You have a lot of interesting stories and point of view, so I love to listen. So while I was listening, actually, I was thinking, for education, is this crisis threat of opportunity? Is both, I guess. But what's your point of view for the institution, like the traditional institutions of education?
Well, I was checking the data, and early 2020, it was before the COVID. And if you think that edX had like 100 million subscribers, and there was an article on Financial Times before COVID, and that was challenging the business schools. Now I'm in this business as well, because they were struggling to find a new model to be close to the client. The client for an education institution is the student. So all these millennials or Generation Z are interesting for marketing purposes, but they are interesting for the education markets as well. So there's a huge opportunity, but when it comes to the organization and the way to adjust your content, the way you're delivering it, the platform you're using them. So there have been schools that have peaked and grown. There have been others that are really honestly struggling, because you don't have that speed to market to create a fully new program. So what we did, I did it, so I'm so super proud of this flex format that we did. This is not for commercial purpose, but basically we closed down in March, and in May we were able to launch this flex. But it was because I was there for 2 years trying to educate the processes, the platforms, the content. We were ready. So the storm hit us at a point in time in which we could do something. And we didn't lose as much as others, because we could leverage all. And it's a journey again. And if you were already in the journey, you could take the opportunity, and you can speed up if you invest in that, because there's a need for investment. You know that shooting videos or doing podcasts, you have a huge amount of content producers. You need to re-educate people to actually produce content in a different way. You know that on YouTube, you can't launch like a 30-minute seminar. No one would watch it. Everyone would drop like in 15 seconds the moment they know where they're in. So it is
That
a lot
depends,
about...
though, if I may.
It depends on the quality. It's always true.
Because there's an audience for everything. You cannot force the audience to watch something, but sometimes I was surprised myself. I mean, I've been in the industry for a while, and sometimes I'm still surprised because like there are the golden rules and then there are the exceptions. Sometimes they love longer content for some reasons, but yeah, that's an exception. So. And there are some funny stories about that. I have some examples that are like I would bet against like 100 times and then lose badly. but yeah, that you need to definitely adapt to the audience and adapt to the platform. That's correct. Absolutely.
And the data mindset. I mean, if you and we speak about, okay, I have a belief, I go on YouTube and now, they're looking 10 minutes video on finance. Fine, that works. So that's another like trend and switch that people need to do. You know, when you're doing learning design, you design content, you fall in love, you deal with people that love what they do, and they said, no, we need 10 minutes to explain like the 5 quarters force in the market. And I said, really, do we need all that time? So you need to convince people. So you need to have a platform that captures the granularity of data you need and prove people that, you know what, maybe this kind of audience need this kind of things. And then you look at the platforms, and the only format that is actually truly watched until the end, it's not a movie, it is a podcast. So why am I doing all these videos that are money consuming? It takes time to change the whole production. And during COVID time, we basically couldn't have people shooting the videos. So what did we do was trying this podcast, and the podcasts were actually working, and it was the best format that we put in front of our learners, because in times of COVID, we're all super busy. We're doing 3 times, 3 things at a time. If I think of myself as a mom, I was, cooking and then listening something and listening. And again, that's the watching the data, but watching the user experience, which is strong. You mentioned that to me, learning is always a keyword, because you're always centered on the people you have in front of you. And it's like a design and think approach to life. So if something doesn't work, you need to change it. So you need, in terms of business, in terms of schools, be where your client is. And if we have 20 something youngsters and they see the world in a different way, you can't treat them in an educational context or business context the way you and I mean, I'm totally a Gen X, so I'm pretty sure that sometimes I do work as a millennial because I have my own peculiarity, but you need to interact with people in a different way, and that helps a lot in not just gathering a trend and spotting what you should do next, but also convincing the people that they should come with you. Otherwise, you're just the only one looking at dashboards and stuff.
Well, definitely data, and even more now. It's more important. That we had a guest last week, which was sharing something very interesting. There are some businesses right now that basically, where like the whole organization has access to the data, and they can change the offering. It's a retailer, so it's more e-commerce. Of course, it's different than education. But the key learning there was everybody could change in the process, from production to distribution to pricing to marketing and everything, like on the go. And so they would have the fact that they were democratizing access to data was actually making decision making easier and faster, so that they can actually serve the clients better. And that was on the bottom line was actually very, very impactful, especially like when there's a lot of uncertainty, even more. So definitely data is a key component on any sector, like especially now that's universities and education. Well, I saw as well a lot of education startups, like there are platforms, and I see like it's booming. It's like it's very interesting, because at the end, like, if the impact is that people learn more, it's a positive impact in a way. In general, like if people want to learn more, that's I think it's important, because if people are like stuck, then there's no innovation and there's nothing moving, and the more you break the status quo, which is completely breaking right now, the more you need more skills and more capabilities. You don't agree?
No, I do, but there's you know, it was a journey for myself as well. I was totally into e-learning moocs, and then here you are, you solve, people learn because you provide them the content that someone would pay MIT or Sloan School to go to. And then why is it that these people are not doing it? Because in COVID time, there's depression, there's, you know, you have to deal with grief, uncertainty, and those are not things that you change with a learning object or a MOOC on a Coursera. So that's another key trend for, you know, what is needed. And that's why I basically exited Google, and I wanted to do something with people. And now it's totally disrupted again because we need to go digital. But my idea of real and true challenge and change happens in experiential context. So I need to put people in stressing situation, having conversations, having role models, having mentors and coach, because adults, they really change if you have a role model. It can be your mom if you're a 12 years old daughter. It can be your teacher at school. But if you enter the company, it is the manager. If you go to a business school, it's not just about the content, it's about how that is tackled. So all those competencies, which are not competencies, is mindset, creativity, um, strategic thinking, because that is something you cannot change on an e-learning course. You need to go blended, and now that's my new recipe. And COVID makes it difficult, but even if an experience is fully digital, you can still use the time differently. So we use a lot. Another thing that is flipped classroom, that it's something that was in primary school like 20 years ago, but not many teachers or professors use it. So I give you the content before, watch this YouTube video, watch this TED talk. So we hire we hired the floor, and it's not about content, it's about how do we interact, how do we put our experience behind that same content. That's why people in MIT and Harvard were okay in putting their stuff out there for free, because the real adding value is someone that scaffolds your experience and help you debrief. So that is still something that machine cannot do. I can have an artificial intelligence algorithm to tell me, okay, you're an intermediate B2 in English, so I assume that you could watch this, listen to that, do this. That is totally feasible. But then there's an element of acceleration that is needed with this all human stuff. So another trend is focus on soft skills and all this. It's not just business school, even in Google. If you think I was in a team that was the Google Digital Academy, the fun of it was, at least at the beginning, because then they went totally AI and totally e-learning. So that's when I wasn't in line anymore with that, because we had, if you think I was teaching programmatic with tarot cards that we created, puzzles and games and Lego bricks, and everyone looked at me at Google like, oh, you're crazy. But then we did this workshop and everyone would buy programmatic because they eventually understood it and they went beyond their fears. And how did it do it? With paper-based, super paper-based Post-it. Never used as many Post-it as I did in London time. So now I think there's balance between, but still there are things you can change with Lego bricks by playing and by having the right kind of conversations, and then you unblock and you can sell all the technology you want and go digital. But if you have the human blockers, you have to use human tools to overcome those. In any, I mean, if it's business or education, it is the way I now see the world in a blended
You're
format.
actually touching on a point that always comes up with every sector, and especially on education as well. But cannibalization, which is, I've heard this many times, and the question is like, if I'm putting my content out there, like my brand is losing out because I'm cannibalizing myself. Why am I doing that? So, but from what you're saying is like, well, not really. it really depends on how you're using it, and the fact that you give like something more, and that the value that you get by getting into like a certain business school or like a course, like that you get something more which connects the dots and help you change the mindset. So it's not really cannibalizing, it's actually getting more audience for what you're doing or what you've done already in the past. Is that correct? What my interpretation?
That's coming totally in your way in terms of content. I mean, even your business, you need a content strategy, okay? You need a pedagogy, you need a methodology, you need platforms, and you need a content strategy to avoid cannibalization. Of course, I need to convince people, okay, if I look at my curriculum and my syllabus, and I said, listen, if I have Goleman talking about the 5 styles of leadership, and there's a TED talk to do that, why do I need some professor of any school just going through the same concept? Like, you know, you go at school, you have a PowerPoint, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you repeat stuff and you expect student to say that. Well, we need to flip that kind of way of doing things in content from the inception. When you are doing your own learning experience and you are designing it, so you need to think, okay, now here I use 20 minutes of something that exists. Here I can have like 2 minutes of myself saying, okay guys, you watch this, you listen to that. Now what I think is you can give your own perspective as an expert and as a professor, and at the same time, by giving the content to your students, which sometimes they are adult students, not sometimes, often, more often, people will not just be youngsters. We have people, they have a certain way of seeing the world that if you need to change it, you need to put them in the position of analyzing the same business case or the same video or the same content. And then you need to help them to have an opinion about that, to discuss them, to have presence online. So what you can do is adding the value even to a digital experience. So of course you can be very happy with the Coursera, you can be very happy with an edX course, but then there's all this trend that is about social. The next step is, how do I make sure that peers interact with content, share their opinion, have the right conversation, and make a step forward? So I think there's a recipe and a balance, and then that needs to be reached. And the effort that I did in school was to convince professors that they were not spoiling the content, because they are not content provider. Because if I go online and I see the video from this Porter professor about these 5 forces I discovered late in life and I could live without it, why do I need another professor talking about the same thing? Let me watch that, let me have your opinion, and then let's discuss. So that's how you do it. And you can do it in primary school as much as you do it along the whole journey. I saw my daughter copying mind maps in COVID. I saw my daughter watching the teacher explaining PowerPoints, and there was a total waste of an opportunity to actually give them a video and then discussing, facilitating. It is a status change that needs to happen. You're not content provider, you're facilitating people to do the next step in their life as human beings or as managers, depends on which setting you are. But it is, and then you train people to be critical, even on the things you have as a general rule. So it's a total shift in mindset of the people you're either raising as a child or having in front of you as colleagues and students.
Definitely. And well, the impact on the new generations are going to be interesting to see, like hopefully positive. It's going to be, it needs a lot of management, most probably. It's something that is going to be definitely impactful, hopefully for the best, but it needs to be thought through, and it's not going to be fairly easy. But well, like I like to teach to my 4 years old, change is good. And sometimes he's coming to me like, Mama, change is good. And I'm like, Okay, you're right. You know what? So, so it's not easy, but it's something we owe to the new generation. So we need to do our best to do that through institutions and through schools and
Yeah.
through business and business opportunities that we bring to them. At least that's my personal point of view. We owe to the next generation something, something better. Hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
Now
We're
moving
moms.
on the tech
Let's
mom,
get out of this
tech moms.
moody.
Uh, what's the the next big opportunity that you see for education in general? Like, what's the key opportunity out there?
Wow. Uh, I always tell the people that I work with, instructional designer, very young enthusiasts, that, I always provide them with experts in pedagogy. Everyone is dead. If you think of Bloom, Piaget, or Kirkpatrick, all these names, when you are in the education space, you're like a dreamer, and it's like the Turing machine for those people doing artificial intelligence. So there are aspirations that have always been there. So the opportunity is untapped, because education is about bringing out stuff. It's about the kind of citizens we want. It's about the kind of people we want to work with. And in terms of business opportunity, as you mentioned, it's huge, because there are many startups doing, there's no content, there's no digital content, because everything was face to face. So it's huge for people that are doing platforms. So it's okay, you can use free available learning management system, but then you need a social aspect. So there are a lot of niche that can help new startup and business. You can do features to existing platforms to enable some learning. So it can be, from a platform perspective, services as well. So we struggle to find instructional designer in the Italian market. Either they were already working, of course, but there was an increase in demand of people with this kind of skills that are working at the edges, because you need people that know the formats. They can clean an audio file or a podcast or a video, but at the same time they need to instruct a teacher on how to do this content strategy and this blended recipe. And so they need to teach and educate someone. They need to put complex stuff into simple, new ways. They need to look at the data and see how to change it. And there must be someone like me overarching, with an overarching strategy. And what is it that we're doing, so that when COVID comes, okay, let's do flex, because we are equipped, we can do it. We have all the teachers that have been trained. So there is a need for people that are actual doers, but also at the same time, a little bit of strategy, because it is also a matter of new business models that you need to find. And there's the Khan Academy. There are people that put content out there for free, but it's in English. So if I'm Italian and Spanish, what do I do? And what do I put on that? So I think there's a huge opportunity for teachers as well, and students as well. So when it comes to the actual interaction, a lot of tools are free. There are available things that you can do. You don't need a learning management system. So then there is the need to, and that's why I do work with teaching teachers how to teach. And if you listen to my daughter again, she said, Mom, they're adult, they won't change. You need to work with kids. And then when I try to help her with the homework, she said, Mom, you're awful when you teach. I don't like the way you do it, because I tend to expand. I go into, she just wants to understand how that plus 2 goes, and she doesn't want to have all the theory behind numbers. So it's very difficult to be a good one. But for teachers, there's an opportunity to put themselves to question what they're doing and have been doing. I've always worked with teachers. They're tough because they think, when I was young, I was too young to teach. Now I'm too techy to teach teachers how to do it. but there's a learning mindset behind. So we never settled. And that's what I'm trying to teach to students. And maybe my daughters is right. Maybe we can mold a new generation in which, when I look at my daughter and everyone said, okay, you should do STEM. Okay, I bought, I can say, because I'm a fan, a Lego Boost robot. And in the instruction, they said, okay, your daughter will have from 7 to 12 years old, like 6 months to play. And in a week, she did the 5 robots, coding all of that. And then she go out there and play with dolls. And I said, listen, it is about creativity. It's about empathy. Maybe she's not that good at getting all the numbers and the doppie in Italian, because she's really, but hopefully there will be Grammarly tools to help them. So I nurture the belief that we need to start from new generation students, and technology is not a problem, it's the way we interact and we use the platform. And there's where I want to change things and where I do have more difficulties, let's say, because you need to go from motivation to change to how do I do it? And it's honestly challenging, sometimes rewarding, but honestly really sometimes tough.
So technology is the enabler, but the mindset is the key thing for getting better outcome. Yeah, definitely. It's I think it's really interesting, and well, from a business perspective, there's going to be, like, the next decade is going to be definitely a booming decade in the learning ecosystem, because there is a lot to be done. So there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff coming up. And thank you very much. It was really a nice conversation. I really enjoyed. And I think that the keyword that we kept talking about was learning, which I think is fascinating. Never stop learning, and it's always great to learn something new, from something very complicated, for like, because you want to learn something new, or through a course, or through life, or through business. I think that at the end of the day, that's what makes us better people, better business people, and that's how we like to think, like, in terms of mindset. So thank you very much for sharing all of your experience. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Paola. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. And so if anybody wants to follow us, just subscribe on the channel. There's going to be, every Friday, there's going to be a new episode with new guests. Thank you again, Francesca. Have a nice weekend.
You too. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.